Thank you very much, Bobby. Another shout out, there's been a lot of talk about civic engagement, and I want to point out a good friend of mine, someone I've been involved with, helped in an effort. I've been duly elected to the National Convention twice, due in large part to the effort in the hard work. My good friend Brad Wyatt over here in the blue shirt. Brad, if you want to get involved, please make sure that this gentleman has your name and information before you leave today. He's doing political trainings in how to be effective, all right? We know about the pain button, Brad, right?
I love the pain button.
The pain button, that political pain button, boy. He'll show you how to find that button and push it hard many times. So thank you, Brad, for everything you've done for our groups.
We both got elected, right? I've never been to Delhi. I've never been allowed to go. They kick me out every time.
Yep.
I don't think you were able to go either.
I made it to one and they kicked me out of the other. I refused to sign an affidavit attesting to an action in the future. And that was the GOP's General Counsel, Vincent DeVito, tried to make me sign that. All right, I found a 2010 grant application to HUD by Mr. DeVito, where he called out his Agenda 21 is that landmark planning document that they were going to seek wisdom from as they use this money from HUD to create a social media presence for sustainable development, a term that was coined by a woman named Gro Brundtland, Prime Minister of Norway, Vice Chair of the International Socialist Party, and author of a book called Our Common Future, which was the predecessor to UN Agenda 21. That's where sustainable development came from, by the way. It's not from a socialist, but the socialist. So, I want to keep the energy level up here, and our next speaker, I know, it reminds me a lot of Lynn Roberts. I wish Lynn could be here today, but she's a little under the weather. God bless her, and let's pray for her quick health. But she gets up there and she yells, and she wags her finger at you something awful and really lets you know. I just love Lynn. She's usually up here, can't make it this week or this year. But another speaker who's very fiery and is likely to yell at you here a little bit has already been mentioned by name. I'd like to call him up to the microphone right now, Mr. Jay McMahon. Hey!
I want to thank John Costa for warming up the audience. And listen, it's great to be here. What a bunch of great speakers, Dave. I really like it. Thank you very much for Dave for inviting me and for the club for having us here. I'm Jay McMahon, and I live on Cape Cod. Some of you know me. I'm married to Shelley, my best friend. Been married for about 27 years. I've been a trial lawyer for 30 years. I have 5 children. And I come right out of the bucket of deplorables. That's right. Now, I know what the bucket of deplorables are because we have former President Obama. I love to say that, former president. We also have former Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton. They defined what a deplorable is. They told us what they are. A deplorable is someone who clings to their Bible and clings to their gun. Hey, I'm all in. All right. That's me. I cling to my guns. And you're not going to take the guns. You're not going to take my guns. You're gonna, the only time you're going to get my guns is out of my cold dead hand. All right, guys, now listen. President Trump, he has to get reelected. He has to. We have to work hard. This is the only way we're going to save this country, by Trump being reelected again. So I'm working hard for him, as you can see. And we all need to work, we got to work hard for him. One thing that the president has taught us is that you have to fight. And he's taught us how to fight. We've learned a couple of things we've learned that from him, but we also learned something from some local heroes. One in particular, Chris Casey. What did we learn from Chris Casey? That you don't have to get permission from Caesar to do what God has called you to do and for your constitutional rights. You don't have to get permission from Caesar. One thing I want to do, and I always want to make sure that I do this, everyone here who is a veteran, former military, or is presently still in the military, I salute you, and I want to thank you for your service to this nation. We are still the best nation on the planet. To all the police officers, retired and current, to the fire department, people on the fire department, first responders, I salute you as well. You are what keeps our fabric of society intact. Thank you for your service. I'd like to read something. We talked about some sacred documents. Some people actually read from the Bible. I absolutely enjoy when people read from Scripture. But I'm going to read from some other sacred documents as well. One of them is called the Declaration of Independence. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'd love to, but I know we've got other speakers coming. So let me read it this way. Part of the Declaration of Independence says this. Listen, we've been talking about, there's been something in the news, all kinds of crazy stuff about racism. It seems like it's only developed over the last couple of years. But people are saying that this nation is inherently racist. I know a lot of times we stay away from that. But I want to read some documents here to show you that that is not true. We are not an inherently racist nation. This is what the Declaration of Independence said. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Now, when this was written, all men was another phrase and term for human beings.
Right.
So we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, all human beings are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator. We know who the Creator is. We've had speakers talk about it. It is the Most High, the Lord God Almighty, our Creator, the Judeo-Christian God. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That means no one can take them away. And that they came down from our Creator, not by some government document, but by our Creator. Unalienable rights, that among these are, it's not the only, it's not exclusive, it's not limited to, but among them are these: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Something that Joe Biden tried to remember and couldn't. He says, well, you know. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We don't guarantee your happiness, but we guarantee your opportunity, your right to pursue it. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That's you. Maura Healey, we don't consent you ruling over us. That crazy left-wing loon, that liberal left-wing loon, has said that I know American cities are burning, but that's how forests start. Is she nuts?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, she is absolutely crazy. How do those people stay in office? We need to work even harder. Now, some of you know I ran against her 2 years ago, and I ran against her because she is trampling on the same rights that she took an oath to uphold. Look, people, when you have government officials, politicians that are elected by the people, and they are acting in the worst interests of the people, you throw those people out of office. Yes. Throw them out. So, we have a Constitution, and we all believe it, and we all uphold it. And if you've been in the military, you've taken an oath. I've taken that oath, and I'm going to keep to it, an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the laws thereunder. So, this is a Second Amendment rally, and it is for the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. By the way, do you notice that the Constitution doesn't say this is a right that's established? It understood that it is like an unalienable right. It was already there. That right shall not be infringed. So every time that you have to sue the government to do something that the Constitution allows you to do, and you lose, or the government wins on that case, your rights are being eroded. And they are being eroded by government officials and the courts, which are supposed to be the guardian of the Constitution. But they're not. Okay, so folks, where does that take us? Well, first of all, let's talk about the rights we're concerned with. Congress, that means the government. Because Congress is the only one, the state legislators or the city council are the only ones that can pass laws and regulations. So when it says Congress, it means the government. All levels, not just the federal level, shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibit the free exercise thereof. Well, that's important. It was so important that it is not only the First Amendment, but it is also the first sentence of the First Amendment.
Yes.
Or abridge the freedom of speech. Now, we know about the collectivism that we're seeing. We know about government officials talking about hate speech. Now, nobody wants to hate. Nobody here hates anybody. But it's not that. It's what they define it as. Or the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. All right. So, we get a pandemic. What's the first thing to go? The whole First Amendment.
Right.
Everything in that.
Okay.
Chris Casey stood. He taught us how to do that. You stand against these people. The first thing that went was our civil rights. There should have been a huge public outcry. Our government officials issued edicts. Nobody voted on those edicts.
Not laws.
They're not laws. Nobody voted for that. No state representative voted for it. No state senator voted for it. We need to take an act and make an active voice in our local communities. Now, here's another thing that's a real huge problem I find. This talk about defunding the police. Is this the most stupidest idea to even be floated?
Yes.
Defund the police. Now seriously, folks, who are you going to call? Somebody said Ghostbusters. Who are you going to call? They said they want to defund the police, and then we got people like Maura Healey and Liz Warren who have said that law enforcement is racist front to back. Well, let's look at some of these statistics and see just how racist it is. Some rogue cop does something in Minneapolis, and they're burning down parts of Boston? I'm sorry, but I get a law degree, but I don't get the connect.
Right, exactly.
I just don't get it.
It's a Marxist insurgency.
Now, if that's the case,
Right.
why are we defunding the police here in Massachusetts? Let me just give you a very interesting statistic. No one, not an African American person, or any others have died in Massachusetts for decades in police custody. For decades in Massachusetts. But look at, we can expand that even more in New England. And we can expand it even more in the entire Northeast, except for Eric Gardner, Staten Island, New York. Okay? We know about that situation. It was a chokehold. Okay, so it happened, and those guys faced the music, and that's how it goes. But to burn down Boston? Now, I gotta tell you something. When I saw what happened to Mr. Floyd, George Floyd, when I saw what happened to him, I was saddened. I said, this should not be. That should not have happened. And I'm sure that everybody in this room, when you look at the video, you're saying, this is not right. So then I saw the protests in Boston, and I thought, why in Boston? I mean, it didn't happen in Boston. It happened in Minneapolis. But I said, well, maybe it touched a nerve. But what did we see? We saw people expressing anger, and then we saw bricks go through the front windows of liquor stores, go through the front windows of jewelry stores, and go through the front window of clothing stores. And I thought to myself, it looks like the retail stores are opening up. I saw people going in and taking cases of liquor. They didn't look like they were mourning. They were taking cases of liquor, loads of Nike sneakers, and jewelry from people who have no connection whatsoever with Minnesota. And I saw a failure of law enforcement to respond because the politicians told them not to. And I saw the Boston police officers, I saw some cruisers lit up on fire, and I saw the officers there, and I was rather surprised that a lot of them didn't have riot gear on. And I thought to myself, they know Antifa was here. Who told them not to do that? It was our weak political leaders who called us to be defenseless. Thank God we got a Second Amendment. Thank God we got a rally like this today.
Amen.
I'm telling you right now, we've got a problem.
Yeah, sure.
And the problem can be resolved, but we have to work hard. People say, this is Massachusetts, what do you expect? Well, I expect it's going to be a tough fight. That's what I expect.
There you go.
They said, well, you know, I'm ready to leave. I'm going to go down to one of the Carolinas. Somebody mentioned that earlier today. I thought that was pretty funny because I hear that from a lot of people. Okay, so the fight might not be worth it to them, but it is to me. Seriously. Look at the Congress, the state legislators, the city council. We need good people, we need good candidates, and you got to get behind them when you see them. We need to elect good people to the government. We still, right now, as I stand here today, we still have that option. We still have the option of running good candidates, but we got to get behind them. This is why it's important. The Congress, state legislatures, and the city councils, that's where they pass the laws. That's where they control taxation, and that's where they allocate the funds. Now let me talk a little bit about the Massachusetts legislature. Right now there's 160 seats. Somebody mentioned about the Congress. I'm going to mention this November. 160 state rep seats. Only about 35 of them, 35 to 36 are Republicans. In the state Senate, there's 40 seats. Right now, there are only 4 Republicans.
Jesus Christ.
There are a couple of seats though that lean red. That is the districts voted Donald Trump.
Right.
You've got one right here in Worcester County. You have a candidate named Steve Hall that's running. Gonna ask you to get behind Steve Hall. He can win. He only lost by a few points when he ran 2 years ago. He can win this seat, but you've got to help him. He's a good gun guy. He's a motorcycle rider like myself, and he's a good conservative guy. Get behind him. We talked about the Congress. We got Tracy Levon running in this district. She's running against. She's running. That's right. She ran 2 years ago. Listen, she's running against Jim McGovern, who is another left-wing loon. Did you ever get a newsletter from Jim McGovern? If you don't send him $25, the sky will fall. Oh, he's a nut, and he deserves to be thrown out of office. You got to support those guys. You got to get behind these people. But it's the state legislature. Now let me just throw something in there. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, but I want to show you the bigger picture. The state legislature. Now, about 6 months ago, I went up to speak because there was an open forum that they wanted to speak against the so-called Safe Communities Act. Have anybody heard about the Safe Communities Act?
Oh, yeah.
Safe Communities Act. That's what the liberals call it. See, when they want to pass something under your nose and you can't see it, or behind your back, they will call it the Clean Water Bill, or this Clean Air Act, or in this case, the Safe Communities Act. Let me tell you what the Safe Communities Act says. First of all, it says, no police officer, no law enforcement official, police officer, deputy sheriff, or any personnel connected in any way with law enforcement can ask either a defendant, suspect, witness, bystander, cannot ask them their immigration status. Basically, it's a sanctuary state act.
Right.
It gives special rights. I call them super Miranda warnings. Special rights. Whether you tell them or not, these illegal immigrants have special rights, more than United States citizens.
There you go.
It's unbelievable what they tried to jam in this bill. So, obviously, they knew that I was up there to speak against it. By the way, the list started at about 8:30. It went on till about 6:30. When do you think I got called?
6 o'clock.
Didn't happen. We're out of time. This is all we're going to take. Happens. Listen, we need people. We need good people in government. You need to get behind your people. Good, conservative people. On the city council, on the school committee, on the finance committee, on the library committee. What about some of the nutty things that are going on in libraries, of all places? We need you there on those boards.
We need you.
Listen, we got to take positive action now. We got people like Liz Warren and Maura Healey who are saying that law enforcement is racist front to back. We know that that's not true. We just absolutely know the statistics prove it. So what are these people telling us? They're not upholding the Constitution, and they're not telling us the truth. We have to throw them out of office. We need to get behind good candidates.
Yeah, Jay, we need you, Jay.
Thank you, Bobby. I appreciate that. Bobby Newman has actually, all right, so let me just say tell you a little bit what I'm doing. As you know, 2 years ago, I ran for Attorney General. The very thing that caused me to run, and I'll tell you a little bit of the story. Maura Healey just put out her list, her so-called list, the bad gun list. And it had just come out. I hadn't even seen it yet. And a friend of mine came to my house, he bangs on my door and he goes, look at this. I said, what is it? He goes, look at it. I said, what? I thought it was some paperwork that his wife's lawyer served on him, right? So I get the thing, I says, fine, come on up. So he came up and I'm reading the thing. And I read it, it's her edict. And I'm reading it down and I'm looking at the list of all these guns, popular guns. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, she can't do this. He goes, she did. I said, she can't do it. It's not gonna be upheld. Can't do it. I cannot see any court anywhere upholding this list. Lo and behold, federal court, Judge William, what's his
Brain
name?
fart.
Yeah, well, whoever.
Roy Moore.
Not Roy Moore, he didn't. But he upheld it and said that, he said it complies with the Second Amendment. No, it doesn't.
Oh, really?
How could you do that? How could, oh, William Young, Judge Young. He upheld this and said it's within the Second Amendment because the Second Amendment doesn't cover military weapons. I'm saying, all right, military weapons? So he's saying an AR-15 is a military weapon? What army on the planet uses AR-15s for their standard weapon? Not one! Not even Haiti! Not one! So I start looking at this and I'm saying, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. Listen, the courts are not, even the courts are not upholding the constitutional rights of our citizens. So what do we have to do? We have to bring in and vote in people as our leaders who understand the Constitution and will uphold it. In other words, there's the litmus test. Are they going to uphold these? Or do we have to go to court and fight them forever and ever and ever till finally some court, either the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court or another one in Washington, is going to grant us our rights? Why do we have to keep taking our government officials to court? Throw those people out of office and put someone in there.
This is the problem.
The time now is to take positive action. Get behind good conservative candidates. When you see a bad politician, throw them out of office, work against them. Find somebody, recruit good people. There are people out there. When I saw that list from Maura Healey, and I saw that nobody else was rising up in the Republican ranks, I didn't ask the governor if I can run. I informed him, I'm running. If you want to call me, here's my number. The phone didn't ring. That tells you a little something. I'm a little concerned that the governor took 6 days to decide that it wasn't a good idea to defund the police. Didn't you know that on day one? Listen, if I can leave you with some of these words of advice. The fight in Massachusetts is going to be fierce. It's a tough fight. It's not for the faint of heart, but don't get discouraged. Don't decide to just up and leave. Stay here and get into the fight. Don't get discouraged. And if I can leave you with the words of Winston Churchill, when it was a dark hour for them during World War II.
Never surrender.
He looked at his audience and he said, never, 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 never give up.
Yeah!